I'm Brayden Dinkla, and this is my Pecha Kucha for Ed Psych. I'm going to tell you a little story about what I learned throughout this semester and how I can implement these and take this information into my classroom. These things, I believe, are the most important and the easiest to translate into the classroom to be a more effective teacher. The very first thing we did was conduct student interviews. Throughout this, we discovered that being an intentional teacher was very important, along with being personable. Most of the kids, whether they were young or high school students, wanted a teacher they could relate to. At the end of the day, they wanted them to care. A few of the negative things that we heard from students were their teacher gave too much homework or wanted them to do too much. We can't really do anything about that one, but what we can change is how we enter the classroom and how we talk to students to give them a more upbeat and entertaining class. We then moved into the most important section, in my opinion, and this was how outside factors impact the class. As you can see in this picture, a student coming from this environment would have so many outside needs that would come before a simple math problem. There are many stressors impacting our students, and we need to realize those and acknowledge them. Now, a student coming from this environment isn't going to be all cupcakes and rainbows, and that's what I think we miss as educators. Most people think these people have it all figured out. All students have different needs and need assistance from us as people first, and then they need us as teachers. If we keep students out of their ZPD, or zone of proximal development, this will cause them to shut down and not listen to anything we have to say regardless of their situation. Making sure the material is appropriate and the student has their basic needs met is the most important thing, in my opinion. Children's first, students second. After this is the stages of psychological development that all students go through. Being able to break down the walls of students comes first. Allowing for the student to trust you, be comfortable with you, and to eventually calm their amygdala. Young students and all students go through many of these stages. One of them is where students discover their sense of purpose. This is by making different decisions such as who they play with or what they wear. All of your students throughout your class are going to be in different spots. Knowing this can help you best manage and teach your class. Each student will go through a phase where they have to find themselves and find their role, kind of like this little police officer. For some like me, it's easier than others. Being able to include every student and make sure you differentiate activities and teachings will allow for everyone to be included and feel good. The moment that I stepped into the Ed Psych classroom, some of my prior habits were already starting to get broken down without me even knowing, such as raising my hand to talk. This is all classical conditioning and can help with classroom management. Being able to instill different habits into your students will allow them to feel safe in the room and be able to learn. A great way that I have found in my practicum and in the classrooms I've been in is using a timer or a bell. When the bell goes off, the students pick up and move on to the next task. This obviously takes multiple times for students to pick up on this, but once they get it, it will make the classroom a more efficient space. How do students learn? This is a question everybody wants to know, including myself. We first have short-term memory. This is very basic information that doesn't mean much to anybody. If we can translate that information from short-term to long-term, then we have successfully taught the student. Long-term memory is where we eventually want to get the most important information. I always think of the movie Inside Out whenever we talked about this, where Riley has her long-term memory area and then the rest just gets thrown into the dump. Repetitive practice and teaching students the same information different ways can help with long-term memory. Some of the best study strategies that I have discovered since taking this class, I wish I knew when I was in high school. Interleaving is where we take something that the student already knows or cares a lot about and transfers it into what we are trying to teach them. For me, basketball was always something the good teachers would compare things to. Think of a dog. If I throw a ball, most dogs are going to go get it and maybe bring it back. This is retrieval practice. The more we have students bring that information from the back of their brain to the front, the more neural pathways we have created. I really wish I would have learned how to actually learn instead of memorize information, because eventually it catches up to you, as we found out. Instilling in our students these different methods can help them practice learning and not just memorization for the 60-point test that we want to give on Friday. This, I believe, is where the learning gap starts. Some teachers focus on just getting students by and pushing them on to the next grade, instead of caring if they actually know the material. We learned throughout this course that memorization is not actually the best way to learn. Instead, having students move around the classroom, discuss with a partner or a group like we did, put their physical hands on an object. This helps them create their own neural pathways that they need in order to transfer the information from short-term memory to long-term memory, and to pass your 60-point test on Friday. All in all, the main thing that I learned throughout this course was that we have to care about students as human beings before we can try and teach them any information. As a great friend of mine once said, the more that you learn, the more places you'll go. That's Dr. Seuss, by the way. I didn't actually know him. Teaching genuinely is a work of heart, and it takes a lot, which is why not everyone is lining up at the door to become an educator. With all of these things that I have learned, I believe I will be able to impact my future students and learn from my mistakes while trying to be the best teacher that I can be.